Welcome back. Notice anything different about Chicago's beaches this year? They're a lot larger. That's not necessarily good news. It means Lake Michigan levels are down from their average, but still nowhere near the dangerous lows from around 12 years ago. And joining me now is Joel Brandmeier with the Alliance for the Great Lakes. He's the president and CEO there. Joel, good to talk to you again. So the levels are down about 3 feet, give or take, this year. What accounts for that?
Well, it's pretty mundane. Water levels go up and down based on rainfall and evaporation, right? And so we've had a few dry years after those record highs of 2020 in Lake Michigan. So over time, water evaporates. We get less coming in through rainfall, and it goes in this cycle. So roughly 30-year cycle from peak to peak. So if people, as you mentioned, people remember those record lows around 2013, 2014, jumped up to a record high. Now we're kind of dropping back off again.
I do remember a lot of folks were concerned about those record lows in 2013. And as we look at some of the fluctuations in lake levels here, you mentioned all this fluctuation is pretty mundane and normal. What's the ultimate effect on the Great Lakes, on the industries that depend on the Great Lakes when these levels fluctuate to this extent?
Well, the water cycle is normal. We are concerned, though, that we're starting to see more extremes, right? And that means that we're seeing the levels jump from low to high and potentially back down less predictably and faster than we used to. Some of that we think is attributable to climate change that's having an impact on all the rainfall and evaporation patterns here in the Great Lakes. The impacts, some people love the big beaches, right? The water level goes down. They've got more space to spread out. On other parts of the lakes, low water levels means it actually reduces access to the water, right? So people can't get boats in, right? Marinas get hung out to dry, or people, some people can't access the water as easily as they can when the water levels are high. In addition, water levels change. It has an impact on shipping, right? When the water is deep, you can load more in cargo ships, and that means you can carry more, you can make more money. So water levels, those changes impact different groups of people in different places across this 1,000-mile wide Great Lakes region very differently.
And, I think there's been dueling concerns, in the years where there's a lot of rainfall and the levels are high. There's concern of flooding in the city. There's concern of the river flooding. And then when it's really low, there's concern that, our drinking water is going to be at threat. You mentioned this is like fluctuating to the extremes every year. Is that just what we're going to be dealing with from here on out?
Well, of course, scientists differ in opinions, but I think we should expect to see those changes, those ups and downs happening more frequently and less predictably, right? That's the take home here. And so, the pictures you see when the water levels are really high, you might see a shot of a house, a coastal house, lakefront owner with their house falling into the water, very dramatic. But that's not limited to just people who own lakefront property, right? Here, even in Chicago, you see giant waves crashing over the shoreline, crashing over Lakeshore Drive, flooding coastal neighborhoods. All that combines with that more extreme rainfall, and has the net impact of can flood people out of their homes, cause property damage, health problems. So all that high water can really wrap itself up into a bundle that is really difficult for people to live through. But I do think we're going to be seeing more extremes, and we're going to have to prepare for that. And honestly, Paris, the time to do that is now. So when the water levels are lower, we should be thinking about what can we do, rebuilding the shorelines, restoring our lakefronts, so we're better protected the next time the water levels go up, because they will go up.
And is there any movement in Washington on that? Because that would take federal money, Army Corps money.
There's not a lot of the movement in Washington right now, unfortunately, is to pull back and cut, not to actually solve the problems that people like folks in the Great Lakes are facing. There is a project, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, a federal agency, is looking at sort of the big picture of what can we do to restore shorelines and get ready for these extreme fluctuations in water levels. I do think it's a reminder that federal programs, federal funding for the Great Lakes is critically important, and just making sure we're paying for basic research, right? This is the research on water levels, the research on what happens when climate impacts our Great Lakes. That's the kind of research that we base all sorts of decisions on, right? From local governments like Chicago all the way up to the federal government. And it's really critical that that work stays funded. So I think that's the most important thing to do right now, is to make sure that we're still getting the basic science, the basic monitoring that's equipping us, right, to deal with the reality of living next to these living lakes, which again are going to go up again Water level fluctuations are natural. They are being addled by climate change, and we've got to learn to live with them. And we need, like I said, the basic science and data to be able to do that.
All right. Well, some of those beaches like Montrose and 63rd are a lot bigger this year. Other years they're going to be a lot smaller. Joel Brandmeier, always good to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Paris. Take care.
All right, you too. And finally tonight, letters. We got letters. We're checking our viewer mailbag from Marcy Statura. She says, hey, Paris, do you have any idea where the taxes from cannabis and lottery tickets go and what they're being used for? Well, we do know cannabis, some of that money is supposed to go toward rehabilitation programs, prison reform programs, getting people on their foot coming out of prison that get expunged from these issues. But that's another good thing to look into. I appreciate the letter. Chase Amin says there's a growing amount of debt accumulating in the RTA, resulting in cuts that will paralyze the city of Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. The state legislature ignored this issue, and now cuts will have to happen. Do you have any way of finding what kinds of cuts will take place? Well, Chase, the legislature has talked about going back for a special session or veto session to actually solve that, to have a new funding formula and consolidate some of these agencies. They have until December before the budgets have to be presented, so we'll see if they do that, but I appreciate your concern as well. And we want you all to write in. If there's something you want us to talk about, email us at parisonpolitics@fox.com, or you can always find me at X as @PASCHUTZ. And you can also listen to the show anywhere you stream podcasts. New episodes drop Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. As always, keep up with all the news you need to know at fox32chicago.com and with the Fox local app. We are back tomorrow night. Have a wonderful Wednesday evening.